Chair. I beg to move that this House has considered employment opportunities for autistic adults, and it is a real pleasure to serve with you in the chair, Mr Turner. This is an important issue and one which has risen in prominence with the increased awareness and diagnosis of autism. And we've seen extensive press coverage of the case of Tom Boyd, an autistic man who has been working at Waitrose in Cheadle Hulme, near my Hazel Grove constituency. And I could not ignore the many variations of the same conversation I have had with constituents about the problems that they or their family members who, like Tom, have faced getting or keeping work or really thriving in their career. That so many people are facing the same issues means there is something we are getting wrong as a society. And as the National Autistic Society says, autism influences how people experience and interact with the world. It's a lifelong neurodivergence and disability. Autistic people are different from each other, but for a diagnosis, they must share differences from non-autistic people in how they think, feel, and communicate. An autism diagnosis should not be a barrier. It should help autistic people find how to be the best version of themselves.
Will my honourable friend give way?
I will happily give way.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Hazel Grove, for bringing forward this important debate. In my constituency of Tiverton and Minehead, I recently held roundtable discussions on the state of SEND education, which we know is dire. But does she share my belief that we should be promoting opportunities for autistic people in employment, who, as we know, can be amongst the sharpest minds, so that those in education can have roles to work towards?
Interventions are meant to be very short, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I very much agree with my honourable friend about the importance of getting the right education that suits each child, each young person, to enable them to flourish in their lives and contribute meaningfully to our community. Strongly agree with that. Clearly, the issues that my constituents have faced are not the same as every autistic person's experience. When you've met one autistic person, you have met one autistic person, and that is a key point. All too often, autism is viewed in just one way. It can be seen as a burden that employers have to overcome to employ that person, rather than as a range of differences and strengths. I will happily give way.
The Honourable Lady for giving way. My niece successfully secured a place on a civil service internship, and from that she was able to go on and train as a work coach, so she's actually helping people who face similar challenges with neurodiversity or health conditions to get back into work. So does the Honourable Lady agree with me that it's really important that other employers set up these bespoke internship schemes, particularly to give opportunities to young people? Thank you.
I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady for that intervention. People with lived experience are often the best trainers, are often the best able to really explain a situation and enable employers to adapt to get the best out of their employees. So I very strongly agree with the point she's brought there. And I see it in my own area of Stockport, where the council delivers training for employers on how best to welcome neurodiverse employees into their workforce. That training is delivered by those with lived experience. That Stockport Council also provides adapted spaces at inclusive job fairs, and that enables them to support attendance by those for whom busy, noisy spaces don't necessarily bring out the best in them. Chair, I'm a Liberal, and as a Liberal, I want to ensure that people are viewed as individuals, that they are given a platform to be the best version of themselves, and that we give our fellow citizens opportunities, not barriers, that we ensure that we are not limited by someone's view of a category in which they happen to fit. And so I would very much like to thank my constituents who have shared their experiences with me and who have very different lives, needs and experiences, but who have faced very similar problems when entering the world of work. My constituent, Bradley from Marple, has had several voluntary jobs in the past. He's done them well, and he now volunteers as a digital champion in the local library. Bradley is autistic and has a speech and language condition, and he is capable, reliable and determined. And I was really pleased that he and his mum came to see me at my advice surgery a few weeks ago, and that they're here today. He's now on universal credit, including the disability element, but tells me that what he wants is the independence and dignity that comes with having a paid job. For Bradley, the problems he faces is getting over the hurdle of having a chance to prove his worth. He's applied for over 100 jobs. He's been given interviews, passed tests, and yet he's never given the job. All too often, he tells me he hears the same refrain. we have another candidate who we feel best suits the post. And while this is said to anyone who applies for a job, and they'll hear it from time to time, it's the fact that Bradley hears the same thing every time, after every interview and after every successful test. That's what stings. Another constituent has had 2 jobs with the same organisation. He's had a diagnosis of being high functioning with ADHD. He has a master's degree and a range of awards and accolades that attest, frankly, to his brilliance. He also struggles to know what day of the week it is or how to cook a pizza, and he fits many of the stereotypes that people have about autism. In the first job, while he was given support to help him, it didn't take account of the way he processed information. Instead, he was put on a performance improvement plan, which gave him no time to embed the enabling strategies his mentor had helped him with. Instead of being supportive, it fed into his anxiety, and such was the stress it caused, he ended up with autistic burnout and on medication. Fortunately, with the support from his parents and some courses of CBT, he was able to start again. Although such was the lack of confidence in his own abilities his first experience caused, that he applied for a much less senior role. This time around, though, the experience was a world apart. He had a structured induction that gave him all the information he needed to settle into a new role. And similarly, when he starts a new project or task, he's introduced in a way that gives everyone the information they need to work well with him, such as sharing with any new colleagues how he prefers to receive information related to the task. He's now a valued, high-performing member of staff, ready to step back up the career ladder, and his mental health is in a completely different, far more positive place. Given that these 2 wildly different experiences are with the same organisation, the civil service, it shows the need for best practice to be implemented much more consistently. This is someone who has the potential to do things that few other people can, and when his job is built to get the best out of him, he flies. When it fails to take account of his need, he crashes. I'd suggest that in a world where we hear all too frequently from some politicians demeaning descriptions of the lives that autistic people will have, we instead need to work on removing barriers that stop them living the right life for them. Stockport Council officer working in this area reports the really interesting conversations with employers about the fact that adapting your business to be more inclusive is really, in his words, about looking at what skills a person can bring to the role. And that isn't as difficult as people first think. It's about listening and understanding. It certainly doesn't stop you being successful or profitable, and it may actually help. 2 of my constituents have also faced challenges when they've been starting and running their own businesses. Both of them have set up their own companies, one supporting people with autism and ADHD, the other a small business selling games and toys. In both cases, their efforts to run their companies have been undermined when they were in what you could term an irregular part of running a company. In the first case, it was going through the setup of the company, which took longer than expected. And in the second, it was when they missed an email they weren't expecting from Companies House. Now, in both cases, my constituents struggled with the sort of activities that too often people and processes take for granted: making calls, sending emails, and completing documents. Katie, who is joining us today, was allocated funding for a virtual assistant through access to work payments. But when her caseworker retired, her case wasn't reallocated and she was left facing mounting bills. In order to resolve it, she was forced to pursue her funding through a labyrinthine process. And were it not for her fantastic mum advocating on her behalf, and then further support from my superstar casework team, she would not have got it sorted out. And as her mum said, the process to claim completely failed to recognise her disability. It was like asking someone in a wheelchair to get out and walk up the stairs. When someone has communication issues, layering inaccessible processes on top causes a struggle that is cruel. The irony is that Katie was caught out by this when she was setting up a company helping people with neurodivergent conditions. And in a further twist, it was systems designed to help people like Katie into work that failed to take account of her autism. Now, these are just 4 examples of people's lived experience of trying to get into or on with work. Disabled people with autism are among the least likely to be in employment of all disabled people. 34% of disabled people with autism were in employment, which compared to 55% for all disabled people and 82% for non-disabled people. And the Buckland review of autism employment found that adjustments for autistic employees is highly variable, and that the onus is normally on the autistic employee to identify and advocate for the adjustments that they need. And that is why we, as Liberal Democrats, have campaigned for obligations on employers and local authorities to provide appropriate care assessments and support. Not doing this is, to repeat Katie's mum's words, like asking someone in a wheelchair to get out and walk up the stairs. All too often, we are building employment practices and processes which are one size fits all, and that size is too small. People are different, and we need to take account of that, because it's only by recognising the differences between people, allowing for them and working with them, that we will get the future workforce that we need. I look forward to hearing from the Minister about what more the government plans to do to make it easier for employment to work for autistic people. Whether that's businesses employing autistic people who can bring so much to a workplace, or changing processes so that autistic people can work for themselves in a way that suits them and gives them a platform to thrive. Schemes like Access to Work, Connect to Work or Disability Confident certainly exist. But my inbox suggests that there are too many people with skills and talents who are falling through the gaps. I'm particularly keen to hear from the Minister when she expects to publish the response to the recommendations from the independent panel of academics led by Professor Amanda Kirby. I'd really like to thank those constituents who have taken the time to share their experiences. Some of them are here today and others are watching online. I hope that this place will change things for the better so that we can do real justice for all the autistic people who just want the same opportunities as everyone else, to work, to live their best life and to thrive. Thank you, Chair.
Well said.